we emphasize more on skills. So do you think university degrees is still relevant at this moment?
I think it's a question not about degree or no degree, but why one wants to do a degree. Some people would like to do a degree because they really want to learn more and they want to deepen their understanding of a subject. I think that's fine. But if you take a degree just for the sake of the qualification, I think what we'll find over time is that it becomes less well valued. The market will give it less and less recognition. We're seeing that in the United States, in Europe. We're even seeing it in Asia. If you look at Taiwan, Korea, places like that. In fact, even in China, they call them the ant tribes. Hordes of graduates on the market, but unable to find jobs that suit their learning. The next question that's, I think, a very interesting one is, when does one get a degree and how do you go about it? We need many paths to a degree for those who are interested in a degree. It need not be immediately after you finish your A-levels or poly. It can be something that you do over time. And what we're seeing today in places like the US, for instance, is that you have universities that are structuring their programs so that you can take your degree over a longer period of time because they want you to get working experience in between. You have something called the open loop university, they call it, where you come in, you study a little, you go out and work, you come back and learn more, but they hope that when you come back and learn more, you're learning it because you know based on your work experience that this is the path you'd like to take in your degree. That's just one example. But the idea of a degree being acquired over time with people moving back and forth from industry into an academic institution is catching on. The market more and more is going to look at experience and skills and not just credentials. So there's nothing wrong in credentials, nothing wrong in someone going for a degree. But go for a degree because you really want to build up your skills and knowledge.
I really hope for it to be more of a cultural shift, starting from the fact that it's not so much of a paper chase. People feel a little bit more empowered that they can add value. With respect to skills on the arts side as well, in the creative industry, what it can really empower or help people do is spark off new industries or new professions. I think my biggest wish for SkillsFuture is that it really enables people to feel they're more empowered to solve problems for society and start young. In schools right now, we teach children to operate within a defined box, and if children could feel like they are really empowered to solve bigger problems as not simply problems to be solved by adults, I think that would be a very vibrant...
With no intimidation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think there may be a slight misperception here that skills and knowledge or credentials are dichotomous. They're not really. Skills actually include also knowledge. It may come from a university education, it may not, but it comes from knowledge, it comes from practice, it comes from your natural aptitude as well. So I think we need not look at them as completely different things. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I agree.
DPM, as you roll out SkillsFuture, some of the challenges drives behavioral change. Moving 5-10 years ahead from today, if you were to envision a successful outcome, what would SkillsFuture 2.0 look like?
Well, first, I think it'll be a society where people have a high respect for every job and every individual, where you don't look at people based on their qualifications, but you look at individuals and admire mastery in every job. It may be a waiter or waitress who has a knack for interesting you in a menu. It may be someone at the MRT station who helps people who are lost and really puts extra effort into it. In every walk of life, that's something which I think we should aspire for, where every individual is respected because they're trying to do their jobs well. Mastery has to be respected.
And people taking a sense of pride in doing whatever job they're given.
It would be great if people were be looked at how much value they add or create as opposed to simply what qualification they have.
Would you see the private sectors or MNCs an important component to spur skills?
Very much so. We have to improve the management culture in Singapore. And we know how it can be done because we look at the best companies, both here and abroad, we can see it being done. I mean, Russell would know.
Yes, I think you brought up a very, very good point. I think a lot of global companies that are progressive, at the cutting edge, they compete in global markets, view talent as a very, very critical aspect of making the company competitive. I'm a big believer of learning agility. I think learning agility to me means being able to do new roles or new jobs that are not exactly your cup of tea. something that you're not familiar with. How do you learn rapidly? That's a skill I think would be useful going forward. The other attribute that I think an employee or leader or manager will look for is resilience. If you use the example of sailing in a boat and you know where you want to go, the real world will tell you that the wind is never going to be coming from the back to your objective all the time. It's going to come from the side, from the front. And what do you do? So I think this is some of the attributes I think we want to inculcate our workforce. How do you learn rapidly in new environments? How do you tackle scenarios that are tough so that you can proceed with your journey towards the objective?
Now, before we wrap up, what are your final views on today's discussion? Russell.
I'm very, very heartened by this SkillsFuture discussion. Very illuminating and exciting. I wish we would have done SkillsFuture earlier. That's a compliment because I think this is a very integral and critical component of how Singapore can succeed in the future. If you look at SG 100, fast forward 50 years from today, I certainly wish to see that SkillsFuture has been an integral part of Singapore's success. Over the last 20 years in my current company, I had broadly 3 phases around how do I master my skill sets in specific areas before I took on a job at the regional level and eventually transitioned to global functions. What was common across this entire career journey was one's ability to learn constantly on the job. How do you learn incrementally? How do you learn in new domains? How do you stay resilient? Because circumstances are not always in your favor as you go down your career progression path. So I think SkillsFuture is nicely tied into my own experience. I think it's fantastic that we've embarked on this as a country.
For me, it's mind-blowing. I see the grander picture starting to take shape. How it'll morph itself, I guess time will tell. But it's very promising, at least in my opinion, because it touches many aspects of life. There's no downside.
I hope SkillsFuture can help young Singaporeans to pursue their interests and passion. Ultimately, when you're happy with your job, you take pride in your work, and people will give you more respect with what you're doing.
SkillsFuture will be another new milestone for Singapore because it will carve a new set of skills for every Singaporean, giving them a new opportunity for them to move forward and be focused in certain industry that they will fall into. I think it will be a very, very good initiative. But in order for them to work, they must be self-motivated and must have the passion to move on.
I hope that for SkillsFuture, it encourages a bigger sense of personal responsibility and personal empowerment, that people would feel that they're able to do more things. Alongside that, for this to succeed, there needs to be very quick reinforcements that people who've taken on this scheme have gotten success out of it, personally and professionally.
I think it's clear to us today that with rapid technological changes, our world is in transition. We see jobs being transformed, new ones being created. Businesses have to change their approach to be even more innovative. And for us, as individuals, we need to embrace continuous learning. DPM, what are your final views?
If you think of SG 100, we have to be a highly innovative society 50 years from now. That's how we will earn our living in the world. That's how we'll have good jobs. That's how we'll have a high standard of living for everyone. And it only be achieved if we have, starting from young and through life, acceptance of intellectual and social diversity, people pursuing their own interests, having their own views, thinking for themselves. You don't get an innovative society otherwise. People have to be thinking for themselves and doing their own thing, wanting to do their thing differently from others. But we've got to make sure that diversity goes hand in hand with a very strong Singapore glue, a Singaporean spirit, where we grow up feeling we have a lot more in common with each other. We have different views, different interests, different lifestyles, but we're basically Singaporean. And that's a challenge. We must accept that challenge, accept that tension between diversity, intellectual and social diversity, which you need for a more innovative society, and maintaining that Singaporean spirit. I think we can do it. I think we can be a society that's highly innovative, where people have a greater sense of themselves individually, their own personality and interests, but we are, at the end of the day, Singaporeans together.
Thank you, DPM.